All right.
He's dangerous, sir.
I know. I'm not a fool, Pliskin.
Call me Snake.
S.D. Pliskin. American, Lieutenant, Special Forces Unit Black Light. 2 Purple Hearts, Leningrad and Siberia. Youngest man to be decorated by the President. You robbed the Federal Reserve Depository. Life sentence, New York Maximum Security Penitentiary. I'm ready to kick your ass out of the world, war hero.
Who are you?
Hauk. Police Commissioner.
Bob Hauk.
Special Forces Unit Texas Thunder. We heard of you too, Pliskin.
Why are we talking?
Have a deal for you. You receive full pardon for every criminal action you've committed in the United States. It was an accident. About an hour ago, a small jet went down inside New York City. The president was on board.
President of what?
That's not funny, Pliskin. You go in, find the president, bring him out in 24 hours, and you're a free man.
24 hours, huh?
I'm making you an offer.
Bullshit.
Straight, just like I said.
I'll think about it.
No time. Give me an answer.
Get a new president.
We're still at war, Pliskin. We need him alive.
I don't give a fuck about your war. Or your president.
Is that your answer?
I'm thinking about it.
Think hard.
Why me?
You flew the Gulf Fire over Leningrad. You know how to get in quiet. You're all I've got.
I guess I go in one way or the other. Doesn't mean shit to me. Give me the paper.
When you come in?
Before.
Told you I wasn't a fool.
Call me Snake.
Hey, I'm Kyle. Thanks for joining me and Andy for the Legendary Creature Podcast. So, if you're listening with your kids or your conservative grandma, maybe don't, because we swear.
Or you can check us out on YouTube, because hey, that's no place for conservative old women or children.
Fuck yeah.
Kyle, I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to go.
You're done with your return to Ravnica / Nicol Bolas land.
Yeah, man, I need to leave so bad. I'm ready to go. Like, I need to take a leak in the middle of Lord of the Rings Fellowship. Dude, you know the part where she's like, that came out when I was, what were we, like, sophomore,
yeah,
junior?
In high school.
Yeah, so that part where near the end where she's like pouring the water into that thing.
You're just like, oh shit.
Dude,
oh, don't, I gotta go.
I wanted to die, man.
Because they're long movies.
Yeah, and you kind of know, like, there's probably not another, like, yeah, it's just, you can't, there's another fight scene coming up, like, and that's what I was waiting for, but, oh, dude, when she just starts slowly pouring that water in that silver bowl, to have Frodo look in the thing, I'm just like, you can't, yeah.
You're like, just destroying your kidneys, just like,
Dude, it's a euphoric feeling when you finally let it rip. That just like you actually like feel like you're coming off the ground a little bit. You feel like you're floating just a little bit, off the ground.
Fuck yeah. Well, so you need to leave Ravnica, like you need to
exsanguinate my bladder. Cast exsanguinate on my bladder. So we're gonna close this out. It doesn't mean we're just not gonna revisit the cards or permanents or legends from this set ever again, but
yeah, from this like, I guess, block, right? Because we're gonna cover everything in this trip to Ravnica that we haven't and that we feel like we want to. There's no rhyme or reason to it other than we've done this before you go episode with Dominaria.
And Dominaria was kind of a big ask, but yeah. And since we're not super into the Planeswalkers, this will be a little easier.
Sure.
Because we don't have to go over 30, so we're not going to go every card. We're just going to kind of revisit some that either here's an alternate way to build it, maybe to think about,
or we haven't talked about yet.
Or yeah, you and I just haven't talked about it. Like we didn't do a deck tech. So it's kind of going to be like a whirlwind really not in depth, but just hey, here's some stuff to think about.
Yeah, here's a deck dump.
Okay, dude, where do you want to start?
I actually don't know, dude. So you've got 2 decks, I've got 2. How should we do this?
Just start with yours. Yeah, like I'll sit quietly and.
So let me give you one. So I actually have 2 that came out of War of the Spark that I'm going to cover for us.
Okay.
One of them is it's just kind of like again, I don't want to get like overly in depth with these decks because we have a bunch to cover, but let me talk about Ilharg the Raise Boar real quick.
Yeah, we should though, because he deserve it.
So Ilharg, I think, is really interesting. It occupies this really interesting space as a commander in mono red, in that when we were doing the review, you brought up Etali as kind of maybe somewhat of an analog to Ilharg, in that there's things that Ilharg wants that Etali probably wants, i.e. a way to get haste.
Yeah.
Being probably one of the primary objectives, right?
Yeah, you want Ilharg on the attack, the turn you send him out, if you ideally.
Right. And because of what he's going to do, probably some form of protection, meaning you're going to have your Swiftfoot boots and your lightning greaves and things like that.
Yeah, I would even say that like one of the best cards for Etali is like the Generator Servant. Like a creature that you can sack and add 2 to your mana pool.
Oh, yeah.
And then you cast that creature, but whatever spell you use that turn, it gains haste.
That's awesome.
Because Etali likes that card. And I'm like, well, you know. And honestly, like Etali wouldn't be bad in the 99.
So Etali is actually in my list for Ilharg. But the thing that I was thinking is that it also, like Ilharg, I think actually, let me read Ilharg off so we can kind of contextualize this discussion a little bit better.
Okay.
So the mana requirement for Ilharg the Raise Boar is 3 and 2 red, so 5 total. The body on this boar god is a 6/6, and then the text on it is it has trample, and then whenever Ilharg the Raise Boar attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step, and then it has the whole long-term plans thing that the God Eternals have. So if it dies or is exiled from the battlefield, you can put it third from the top in your library.
Yeah. So he has that weird like God complex.
Yeah. Like, I gotta come back. I will return.
Yeah.
So like I said, it kind of has that, like, I want to get out and attack because it has this attack trigger, right?
Yeah.
So it has this sort of analog with Etali, but I think it also has a ton of overlap with Felden of the Third Path, right?
Yeah, because you're cheat playing a little bit.
Yeah, you're cheat playing costs. So things that normally you probably wouldn't find yourself super excited to put into your deck because of their steep CMC, you might have an inclination to put them into Ilharg because you can get their enter the battlefield effect without ever having to pay their mana cost.
Okay, so give me some creatures that this would be probably a lot of the same ones you find in Felden.
So a lot, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of the same ones that you'd find in Felden. Let me pull up my list here. So
like Spawn of Thraxis.
Yeah, Spawn of Thraxis is a good example.
So when Spawn of Thraxis enters the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of mountains you control.
Yeah.
So any target.
Another one would be the Mere Battle Sphere. So the Mere Battle Sphere it's a pretty good card, but when you have a way to re-ETB it, such as with Felden or with Ilharg, it becomes really powerful because each time it comes in, it produces 4 new mirror tokens. And since it has haste as its attack, it's tapped and attacking, right? It's functionally haste. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're in a position where you can put it to use each time it comes out, but it's not vulnerable because it's mostly just going to be in your hand.
Okay.
Aside from this combat phase.
So we're looking for valuable ETB.
So we're looking for valuable ETBs, and so
or on combat damage.
Yeah,
any of those,
something like that as well. So I don't think there's a huge mystery to either of those. I think if you go look at Etali on EDH Rec, if you go look at Felden on EDH Rec, you'll probably have all the inspiration you could possibly conceive of for Ilharg.
Yeah, I think for Etali, it's more just like how to get on.
Right.
get on with it, because eventually, like I kind of see you actually wanting to cast some of these creatures manually, and having haste kind of just has that.
It gives that extra bonus that they're going to get into it.
Yeah, you want more of them out,
and that's kind of why we're saying that haste is valuable here, because if like I think what you're alluding to is that, okay, let's imagine a turn where I cast an Inferno Titan and I cheat in a mere battle sphere. Right?
You want haste here so you can swing with the Inferno Titan.
Yeah, the Inferno Titan swinging gives you 6 damage on that turn that it's cast.
Yeah.
While the mere battle sphere is coming in. So you're getting tons of value this way by cheating costs, and you have haste to kind of just give you that little extra oomph. So that's kind of what I'm saying. But as I started looking at Ilharg, I thought, is there something else that I can do to kind of just make this deck a little bit maybe kind of sort of unique?
Is there? Because you can't really go on attack triggers. Those aren't going to work for you.
No.
So while I say Atali's good in the other 99, it's really just because, he's just a big guy. Like, once he's out, great. But, and he's following, I don't know. I just like that damn card.
It's really cool.
What else can you do?
So let me propose a route that I think people could take with Ilharg.
Extra combats?
That I think extra combats would be good, of course. But I think this is really interesting because you can get value once Ilharg's out. You can get value from him without ever having to use mana.
Okay.
Do you see where I'm going, Andy?
No.
I want to destroy or punish the use of lands.
Oh, you mean mana and fun. All right. Continue.
So I've put in my list this big package of things that either destroys lands or makes them so they don't untap, or makes it so that people get punished for using them, just to kind of make it so the game's playing on Ilharg's terms more than anything.
Okay, we'll start talking.
So let's just go through this. Like,
I'm listening.
I've got, of course, Blood Moon. So non-basic lands are mountains. So we're kind of removing people's ability to use their colors, especially if they're playing those multicolored decks and they're really trying to use those split lands.
You know what? You're in mono red, man. Sorry.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, we're here.
Sorry, everybody. I'm in mono red. What do you want from me?
I found some other interesting cards. Some of them are going to be very familiar, but so this one, Citadel of Pain. So it's an enchantment, 2 and a red. At the end of each player's turn, Citadel of Pain deals X damage to that player, where X is the number of untapped lands he or she controls. So if somebody's really not a fan of you just cheating in these things during combat, they're trying to do something at instant speed.
Okay.
They're trying to play off their turn, you're going to punish them for doing it. Of course, Decree of Annihilation is in here. We can cycle it and destroy all lands if we're going to go totally nuclear.
God damn.
Impending Disaster. So it's 1 and a red for an enchantment. During your upkeep, if there are 7 or more lands in play, sacrifice it, destroy all lands. So Mana Web, this one's kind of interesting. So 3 for an artifact. Whenever any land target opponent controls is tapped for mana, tap all lands he or she controls that can produce any type of mana that land can produce.
Bro.
So if somebody taps an island, all of their lands that can produce blue get tapped with it.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, what a card you found here.
Mana Barbs. So if somebody taps a land for mana, it deals 1 damage. So this one is kind of it, on the appearance. If you look at its card text, it might seem like it works super well with Ilharg, but we would need to pay attention to the errata text. So it's Myojin of the Infinite Rage.
Okay, okay.
So with the Myojins, they
have the divinity
They
thing.
come in with a divinity counter, and if you remove the divinity counter, something happens,
Okay,
right?
you're right.
So with the Myojin of Infinite Rage, when you remove its divinity counter, it destroys all lands.
God.
However, it doesn't quite jive with Ilharg because it's cast. And
it doesn't come in with that divinity
So
counter.
if you're using it with Ilharg puts it into play, so it's not cast. So that's where we need to look at the errata text. So it is a steep mana cost to get yourself in a position where you can destroy all lands, but that's an option here. Price of Glory. Whenever a player taps a land during another player's turn, destroy that land.
Yeah, we've had that one at our table.
Yeah,
to kind of deter Mr. End step.
Yeah, exactly. Ruination, destroy all non-basics. Sands of Time. So this is an artifact, 4 mana. Each player skips his or her untap phase. At the beginning of each player's turn, untap each tapped artifact, creature, and land he or she controls, and tap each untapped artifact, creature, and land he or she controls. So if you're not using all your stuff on your turn,
you're going to be in this weird spot. So it basically, that's fucking weird.
It's very bizarre. Like all the stuff that
so the creatures that didn't attack last turn, now
they're tapped down.
Get tapped.
And all the stuff that you did use does get untapped.
Ew. What is it? What is that one called again?
It's called Sands of Time. It's an artifact.
Sands of Time.
Storage Matrix. So this is another artifact for 3 mana.
Storage Matrix.
As long as Storage Matrix is untapped, each player chooses artifact, creature, or land during his or her untap step. That player can untap only permanents of the chosen type this turn. And of course, with Ilharg, we're going to choose creatures, and we're still going to get our value because we're putting stuff in from our
where everyone else,
hands,
it's
where
like,
everybody else is kind of like, am I going to advance? Or am
so
I
weirdly, that it kind of puts other decks on the front foot aggro train in a weird spot. Like
Yeah.
Either stop developing.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting with that. Storm Cauldron. So this is another artifact, 5 mana. Each player may play an additional land during each of his or her
really
turns.
Fucked up.
Whenever a land is tapped for mana, return it to its owner's hand. So you can play 2 lands, but if you tap a land for mana, it goes back to your hand.
That card's really fucked up, though. I mean, all of them are. Who am I kidding?
Some familiar ones, Tangle Wire. So it's the one that has Fading 4.
Yeah.
So they equivalent to the number of fading counters on it. Everybody has to tap down that many permanents when they start their turn. Of course, Winter Orb, if we're going to be this degenerate.
Yeah, I was just waiting. Like, why hold back at this point, Satan?
So as long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than 1 land during their untap step. And then finally, Zuzu the Punisher. So whenever a land enters the battlefield, Zuzu deals 2 damage to the land's controller.
Okay.
So this
so
whole
with Storm Cauldron out, it's just like, oh yeah, okay. You can play 2 lands, take 4 damage, and then anything it's just shoved back into your hand.
Right. So the idea being that like all of this stuff just makes it, people are going to take damage for developing, or they're going to be in a position, depending on what surfaces for you, they're not going to be in a position where they can develop anything. While you're still trying to get value with Ilharg.
But you
now let me
you need to say this.
This is going to grind the game.
Well, it's not
down like
that, and you're going to be very reliant on this pig.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
That pig goes down, and you're kind of caught up in the same mess everyone else is. Like,
it's true.
Breaking parity is like, what's your plan for that?
So something that we can obviously, like, I think we can get a decent amount of damage. The best thing that we can do is try to maybe have some setup before we try to lock things down. So ideally, if we have a creature in hand that's going to do damage when it enters the battlefield, and then we have something like a Warstorm Surge in play.
Yeah.
That makes it so that we're going to be able to push the game forward faster just with this one instance.
Either by removing creatures
of putting something into play using Ilharg's triggered ability. The other thing, obviously people are going to find this, if we're going to do this stuff with lands, we want to make sure we have a decent amount of our ramp package invested in artifacts. And if we're doing that, then of course, one of the key cards that you're going to see come up with this is the Stronach Resonator.
To twin his ability.
So that you can twin his ability and get 2 creatures into play. And so, like I say, this makes it so it's grindy. You're not going to be able to advance the game as fast if you are just straight up going to try and aggro it out.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets it. I think what it does is it puts you in a position where there's less of a window for people to fuck with your game plan. I just think it's kind of interesting, Andy. Just the route to take Ilharg.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Mr. Bundy. Do you want to hear about my deck?
Yeah, give me one.
So I don't know if you knew this, but I have a thing for cycling.
What? I've never heard of this.
You've never heard that I have a thing?
I only have one of the deck lists that you built around cycling. And, you have a deck list that you built around cycling.
So here's another one. So we've had time. This is actually one that we've had time with, like not the deck, but the commander.
Sure.
But it's Lazav the Multifarious. So way back in a land long forgotten, in a time long ago, we were at a set called Guilds of Ravnica, if anybody can even remember that. They spoiled Lazav the Multifarious. So to review, he's a blue and a black for legendary creature shapeshifter. When Lazav the Multifarious enters the battlefield, you surveil 1. So that says, look at the top card of your library, you may put it into your graveyard. So it's kind of like a scry, but it ditches into the yard. He's a 1/3, but he has an activated ability that is pay X. Lazav the Multifarious becomes a copy of target creature card in your graveyard with converted mana cost of X, except its name is still Lazav the Multifarious. It's a legendary in addition to its other types, and it has this ability. So to kind of put it low to the ground, if you have a invisible stalker in your graveyard, all you need to do is pay 2, and Lazav will become a Lazav Multifarious invisible stalker.
It's like, I can't be blocked.
Who can't be blocked and is hexproof. And what's cool is it's not till end of turn, so it's really until you decide to activate that ability again.
Yeah.
So that kind of sets him up a little different in that way. So we had somebody in our group make a pretty held back budgety version of it, but honestly, like if you look at a lot of lists, that they're not really demanding very expensive cards outside of.
To clarify, it doesn't say till end of turn, right?
No, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, gotcha.
He stays that way until you decide to do it
change him
again.
to something else.
Yeah. So didn't I say that?
Maybe I misheard you.
Yeah. No, it's not till end of turn. Some end of turn effects that are activated off of another creature.
Oh, as in
would work.
Yeah.
So let's say you have him. So one of like the
big ones is the Vector Asp.
Nefarious ways is the Vector Asp. So the Vector Asp is a 1 mana. Is he 1 mana?
It's 1. It's an artifact creature snake.
So let's just kind of walk us through it. So let's say Vector Asp is in the yard. We can pay 1, have Lazav become the Vector Asp, and then hurry up and pay the black to Vector Asp gains infect till end of turn. So now if we use any more mana and shift him to another creature, he will still maintain the infect that he's gained from this activated ability.
Yeah.
So if you transition him into something like, I don't know, something really big, I guess is kind of the idea. What people want to go for is, what is it, the Phyrexian Juggernaut?
Yeah, the Phyrexian Juggernaut's a 12/12.
Is it Juggernaut or Dreadnought?
Dreadnought.
Yeah, whatever the knots are, whatever knot is. Yeah, so it turns into a 12/12. Yeah, you can do this in response to them not block. So all in one turn, I can attack as the invisible stalker. You have unblockable and hexproof, so you can't even spot remove it. And then right before combat's dealt, shift him into the Vector Asp, grant him infect, and then shift him into the Dreadnought, and you're out of the game.
See you later.
So it's really cool on paper. Like he's a really cool commander. What we kind of saw though is that it's a lot of do nothing and then try to just like insta-jib somebody. So you're kind of like plodding through your deck, very slowly trying to get through your library into your graveyard with things like Frantic Search or Jace's Archivist or something like that. And then once you have that combo put together, well, it's now public knowledge. Like people can look at your graveyard and have they been a victim of this or seen a victim of this kind of stuff going on? Yeah, man, they just start to focus you out. And if it never happens, which was the case here, yeah, it's just a lot of standing water.
Plus, it tends to you also kind of have to run that through your moral labyrinth too, right? Because I think Brad, who in our play group has had this deck, he's had these moments where he's like, okay, I can take someone out early. I'm ready to do it.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I don't have a way to be sure that I'll be able to do this 3 turns in a row.
Yeah. Especially with after everybody witnessing it.
And so
there's a lot of blue counter magic that you could start leaning on to ensure that people don't disrupt you or whatever. The big thing that you're really worried about is graveyard hate.
Yeah.
So having a way to counter triggered and activated abilities becomes pretty important too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was kind of looking around at like different Lazav ideas that people were throwing around, and yeah, like you've got them all. They go from like doing level up counters where, because he maintains the counters. That's another thing, is that if he ends up with a +1/+1 counter and shifts away, he keeps it. It's on the card.
Yeah.
If he has a level up counter, some of the leveler upper people are easy to do. Their level up requirements
they're
only
cheap.
1 mana. Yeah, but when they shift over to something else that usually is way out of scale. So like
You can start taking extra
there's-
turns type thing.
Yeah, there's one that like basically like between everyone's turn, you would take an extra turn. You know, there's different ideas, but I saw one guy's post, and I'm going to put it on in the notes about this, but he had this idea to just do like a cycling list. And of course I was like,
cycling?
Cycling? Right? So to remind everybody what cycling is, it was in the format for standard a little bit during Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation, and then it's way older than that. I mean, it goes back to like Urza's Legacy, even like or even further. I don't even know, but it's kind of one of those ones that comes and goes. But pretty much the idea is that you have a card, and then you can pay its cycling cost and discard a card from your hand and draw a card. So I think one of the doable decks that are out there right now when it comes to cycling in EDH is actually a Zur deck, where the whole goal is to get Astral Slide into play,
right,
using Zur's Tutor,
right,
and then using the cycling to blink creatures in and out of play and whatever, right? But cycling is a huge part of that deck list. I don't know of any others outside of that. I've seen ones that were like a Kaidel and Ravos list that was kind of in the same vein. It was kind of like Esper with a splash of green kind of idea.
And you kind of did like a cycling Varina list, cycling discard thing that I ended up building out that's moderately works.
Yeah, I'll look, and this is the other thing that I want to say. Like, what I'm about to go over is not remotely as fast or as effective as the Lazav decks that exist. But I think it just seems funner to me because you're just going crazy with ditching stuff into your yard and looking for the right cards.
Yeah, and if you have played with Lazav the Multifarious and you've had the experience we've seen,
it's just like a lot of
maybe you want to do something else
until
with
you
the
can
deck,
just one punch them. And I think the situation still exists. That I think I put some cards into here that still make it so you can do some heavy damage, potentially one shot them out of the game. But let me kind of go over why I think this is a little pretty. I mean, do I want to use the word viable? I think the CMC is attractive with shifting him around between creatures. It is an extremely mana intensive affair.
Right.
You got to keep it low, like, and I mean very low.
Yeah.
To get him from one side to the other.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, my deck's curve has 19 creatures at the 3 spot, and I think 15 or yeah, I think it's 17 creatures at the 2 spot. So most of them are kind of in that range. There's some that are pretty big but I couldn't pass on them. But yeah, let me get to it. So one of the ones that just looks really attractive for this is called the Grizzly Survivor. So he's 3 mana. It says whenever you cycle or discard a card, Grizzly Survivor gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So let's say you're starting off with an unblockable invisible stalker version of Lazav. I attack you, right?
Okay.
And I have I have a bunch of cycling cards in my hand plus this Grizzly Survivor out. I can cycle, or pay 3, shift him over, and then cycle, and he goes up by 2 each time.
Okay.
So this is kind of like to put things into perspective of what we're going for here. One of the really most important cards that you want to be finding, like right off the bat, is the Fluctuator, because it basically cancels all of the cycling.
Yeah, the cycling costs.
Yeah, so the Fluctuator is a 2 mana artifact that says cycling costs you up to 2 less to play, is what it says.
Okay.
So it's reduced by 2. So if you have a bunch of, and I made sure that a lot of these were exactly 2 to make sure that every cycling pick I put in here.
Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, so all of the cycling picks that are in here, they're almost right on that range. Some of them aren't, but most are just exactly 2. So like SWAT, it's 1 a black and a black that says destroy target creature with power 2 or less, but its cycling is 2.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, and there's another thing you have to kind of adopt if you're going to go down the path of cycling is that the cards' effects themselves are kind of like, you have to kind of think of them like the charms, like close, but if I don't need it, I can ditch it and find something else.
I find, having piloted this Varina deck that has a lot of cycling stuff in it, I find that you have to, as the person piloting it, you have to really ask yourself all the time, do I need to use it or cycle it?
Yeah. And make that decision quickly. Don't get attached to them.
Yeah, because exactly. Because if you get attached,
if you're agonizing over it, probably just cycle it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? Like,
and because the other thing too is that like you can be a little more aggressive in terms of just playing it out, right? Like you don't have to sit there and like, oh, I gotta hold this and wait for the moment where it's gonna be valuable. It's like, no, there's no reason to use it right now, so I'm gonna cycle it.
Yeah. Another big card when it comes to going down the cycling road is New Perspectives. It's extremely mana intensive, but the payoff is from here on out, you're good to go.
Okay.
It's 6 mana, but as it enters a battlefield, you do actually draw 3 cards. So it has a draw 3 attached to it. But it says as long as you have 7 or more cards in your hand, you may pay 0 rather than paying cycling costs. So that actually cancels out the colored ones. So now you're just, as long as you stay at 7, which you will, as long as you only cycle, because they replace themselves.
Yeah.
If you have any kind of draw doubling effect like Thought Reflection or Alhamret's Archive, you actually are up on cards as you cycle through.
So this is like the rooftop storm of cycling.
It's the rooftop storm of cycling. So yeah, to kind of go over the creatures that care about cycling that I've put in here. There's Archfiend of Ifnir. He's 3 a black and a black. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you can put a -1/1 counter on each creature your opponents control.
Fuck.
But it has a cycling of exactly 2. So if you don't have the mana and you don't care to cast it, or you want Lazav to become the Archfiend of Ifnir because he's a 5/4 flyer at that point, you can cycle it into the yard. Because actually discarding on your own is not, discarding yourself is kind of hard to do. There's a couple of enchantments that let you do it, like the Zombie Infestation, but it doesn't happen all that often.
No.
But cycling's a way to do it, and it replaces itself. Curator of Mysteries, so it's a 4/4 for 4, so pretty evenly costed. It has a cycling of 1 blue, but it says whenever you cycle or discard another card, you can just scry 1. So you're kind of cleaning up your draw a little bit. Then yeah, of course that Grizzly Survivor, when you cycle, he gets +2/+0. I'm not so sure about this one. The only reason I kind of kept it in here is because the cycling cost is only 1 mana, but it's the Horror of the Broken Lands. So it's 5 mana. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, the Horror of the Broken Lands gets +2/+1 until end of turn. But his cycling cost is only 1 black. So I kind of just, I don't know. That one, it's just, you'd have to spend 5 mana to shift Lazav into it and then hold it. That probably is your whole turn.
Right.
And then you see, and that just can't happen. Like what you want to be doing is shifting him between an unblockable creature into a cycling one.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's another one that likes cycling? Oh, there's the Vizier, the Shadowstorm Vizier. So she actually has flying, but it says whenever you cycle or discard a card, Shadowstorm Vizier gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So the other ones don't have any kind of like innate evasion attached to them, but this one does. What's annoying about this one though is that she herself doesn't have cycling.
Oh, sure.
So it's just like
how am I going to? You've got to go through the traditional Lazav.
She's
means
only
of getting her to the
yeah.
yard.
She's only 2 mana, so you can do 1 in a black and just cast her and expect to block with her. I guess that's kind of reliant on your opponents
she's
a little bit.
1/3, so like even that's not. Somebody's going to be sending some
right. So she's not my favorite. One of the other ones that I thought was really dope though is the Vile Manifestation. So it's 1 in a black. It has cycling, so it's got the 2 cycling, so it's really easy to ditch into the yard. But it says Vile Manifestation gets +1/+0 for each card with cycling in your graveyard, and it's a 0/4.
Fuck me, dude.
So you could, if you have, I'm just gonna Magical Christmas Land magic. If you have cycling costs are canceled, I go to attack you. I shift it. I'm met with no blocks. I shift him over to one of these other ones that gain power when I cycle.
Oh.
He holds that till end of turn because that's what they say. So let's say I go 2, 4, 6, 8. So now he's up by 8. And then I switch him over to this guy. Well, this guy reads, well, how many are now in the yard? So he'll go up even further.
Sure.
So he'll go up by another 4. See what I mean?
That's fucking dope. So you could be on the 1 to 2 hit clock.
Yeah, this one's only 2 mana. So why I'm attracted to this idea is that, yeah, a lot of these guys are very low CMC. The cycling is very low CMC. Like, if you just, you're not really investing a lot here.
Yeah, you're not investing a lot into them, but also just the whole thing speaks to you're playing throughout the game, right?
Yeah.
Like everything you're doing is...
Because if you're on the back foot, you always have the actual effects of these cycling cards.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're not amazing. Like there's Choking Tethers. It says you can pay 3 in a blue, tap up to 4 target creatures.
Okay.
But when you cycle it, you can tap 1 target creature. So it's like you're really on the back foot. You're like, before you go to comment, I'm typing 4 creatures.
Sure.
If you really got to do it. Complicate is 2 and a blue, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So it's like a mana leak. Or you can cycle it and they have to pay 1. You know? Countervailing Winds, it's counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each card in your graveyard. And it itself has cycling. So yeah, to kind of summarize the deck, there's a bunch of these weird effects that, yeah, they're probably not the best, but they all have a way to just, you can get rid of them to pump these other creatures.
Yeah. Something to note though is that that's like cycling it's an activation, right?
Yes, it's an activation.
So if you're using it like you mentioned with the countervailing winds, if they don't have that extra 1 or the ability to pay the mana.
You're talking about complicate.
Or complicate. Yeah. Like if they can't pay the mana cost, they can't just do a counter spell. Like counter spell, they'd have to counter an ability.
Right. When you cycle it's a triggered because it's a when. So when you cycle complicate, it's now a triggered effect that's thrown up there that they would have to deal with.
Sure, but what I'm saying is like any of your cycling spells that have like there's something attached to the cycling, like Decree of Pain, for example, right?
Yeah.
Like if you cycle that, they can't use a counter spell on it. It has to counter an activation.
You're right.
Right? So that is one thing to keep in mind, even though they're maybe not as good as just the traditional spells you'd use.
They aren't. There are pound for pound, there's better.
There are better spells, but they do fit in a weird niche.
So there's a couple other cards I wanted to hit you with before I move off of it. So since you cycle and draw, Psychosis Crawler is pretty good. Because it's cycle, draw, cycle, draw, cycle, draw. So as you discard, as you cycle it away, you draw the card. So if you somehow override your costs and you have something like Thought Reflection or Alhamret's Archive, you probably could just do a lot of damage without your commander really being.
Yeah, that's
you
awesome.
Could still be in the zone. Toothy Imaginary Friend is another person that Lazav would like to know his location. So it's 3 and a blue. You partner with Peer, but he's green, so fuck him. Whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Toothy Imaginary Friend. So if Lazav is Toothy, he's going to maintain those +1/+1 counters even when you're done being Toothy.
Yeah.
Then it says when Toothy leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. So this is a really good to kind of dump your.
Yeah, if somebody goes to do a removal, you can be like, all right.
Yeah, I would argue that he's good to just cast actually and not find ways to make Lazav him, go through the motions of cycling and having him getting bigger.
Sure.
Have him die, then do it all over again with Lazav being an imitation of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Toothy's powerful.
Yeah, Toothy weirdly is, man. Like he's no.
I remember the first time seeing it played out a bit. It was actually at GP Vegas last year.
Yeah, he's
and
no
I was
joke.
just like, oh my God, this thing is crazy.
He's no joke. Drake Haven's in here too. So
yeah,
2 and a blue. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token. Same with Faith of the Devoted. So same set, same CMC, but the effect is different now. With everybody loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So it's just like a black enchantment card.
I can vouch for this card.
I put this one in here where I'm like, I don't know. Since there's a pretty high density of instants and sorceries. So there's 10 sorceries, 18 instances.
Wow.
I put the Rune Chanter's Pike in this.
Oh, okay. So you can really just get some size.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this card. It's one of those pet cards from way
this
back
is back
in the
before
day.
we played Commander that you used this thing.
Because we did like a draft once where I just went nuts with this thing. And it's weird how like weird emblematic victories from 2011 just don't leave you. But it's a 2-mana equipment, so it's not super demanding. And I have a lot of transmutes to find this card, or 2 CMC cards to get the Fluctuator. But if you've already got the Fluctuator going, like you run into one of your transmutes.
Go grab this guy.
And by the way, transmutes trigger a lot of these effects because it says cycle or discard, and transmute is a discard effect.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So Rune Chanter's Pike, 2 mana, equipped creature has first strike. You get +2/+0, where X is the number of instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, and it has an equip of 2. So he's just holding this pike, and it's kind of like subordinates that other dude's effect with however many cyclers are in the graveyard to really get that oomph up there. Another card that was pretty damn good in the other Lazav build that we saw was Perpetual Timepiece.
Oh.
So it's a 2 CMC artifact that you can tap it and put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. But the real thing here is that you can pay 2, exile Perpetual Timepiece, shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into your library. So as an emergent,
this is actually just like a really good card for anybody that needs to protect.
It is kind of one of those like, oh fuck, I need to like somebody's gonna yard me. I'd rather have them in my library. I mean, the effect is still pretty bad, but it's
like we've seen it in the Muldrotha deck that plays in our play group
to save his yard.
Yeah.
If you actually watch our gameplay video, I think he uses it to dodge a mill to reset his library to get it back up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can be selective about what you shove back in there. So I guess if you're kind of running out of cycling cards, you're just like, God damn it, I need to reset it.
Yeah.
You know, and choose to keep the creatures in there, but put all the instants and sorceries back in the library so you can hope to cycle into them again, I suppose.
Yeah.
Another one that I thought was really cool was Sickening Dreams. So it's 1 in a black. It says an additional cost to cast Sickening Dreams, discard X cards. So a lot of these effects, again, are triggered off of discard.
Sure.
But it says Sickening Dreams deals X damage to each creature and each player. So if you have a pretty big grip, you can just leave the game yourself and everything else with it. Or it's just again, you got to find ways to get stuff into your yard. So it's a way to maybe pseudo board wipe / put maybe 4 cards in your yard. So you can do like 4 damage to all creatures and all players and put 4 new cards in your graveyard.
Is that Zur in the art of Sickening Dreams?
Dude, I think it might be. The Patriarch Dreams are a vile. Did he do anything around that? We need to get AP in here. Was he around? Yeah, because he's like this. But yeah, that's kind of an idea to like ditch stuff into your yard. And then the last one, which is I think pretty aggressive, and it's now a $12 card, but it's Mana Severance.
Oh.
So it's 1 in a blue. It says search your library for any number of land cards and remove them from the game.
So this puts you in a position to where you're gonna hit like with your cycles.
Yeah. So once you're set up, if you feel like confident that never having another land drop again would behoove you, then shoot the spell. You should definitely shoot the spell. Training Grounds is also pretty good with this because it reduces the cost of shifting him between these creature states.
Sure.
As far as like just kind of looking at this thing, like, yeah, it's definitely, like we said, it's an alternate build. And by alternate, I don't know how much like experience people have had out there with Lazav where they're like, yeah, I've done my time with how it is now. Maybe this is one last to do. I don't really see it being very expensive, like 19 cents, 55 cents, 20 cents, 16 cents, 24 cents, 25 cents. Like these cards are not sought after.
The cycling theme has not like caught on to this super popular degree. Like everything that's a part of it is for the most part pretty cheap.
I love it for its flexibility.
Yeah.
There's actually cycling cards that I just kind of, I favor them. What is it? Faith of the, it's a removal spell that you and I have been pretty into lately from Amonkhet, the white one. You know what I'm talking about? And you can just cycle it if you don't use it. It just says exile target artifact or enchantment.
Yeah, I use it a ton. It's Faith of the, gosh dang it.
Yeah, but I know
like,
what
you mean.
We value it because it's either you use it or you just discard it. Like let's say there's just nothing you need to hit and I'm just going to cycle it away.
It's Forsake the Worldly.
Yeah, Forsake the Worldly. There we go.
Is what it's called.
Yeah, like All of Dust is probably a better card. It's instant speed. It's near in the mana, right? Isn't this one like
so? This
3?
One's 3. It is instant. It's exile target artifact or enchantment, but it has that cycling.
It has that
too.
Cycling ability, so you can just cycle it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. For whatever color where you're like, yeah, I don't really need to do this right now. I actually need another card. Boom.
I will tell you just as a testimonial for this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I put Forsake the Worldly in most of my white decks now. There are times because you build your deck to have redundancy, right? So that you just get the things you need.
Yeah.
Where I have 2 artifact / enchant removal spells in hand. And one of them is Forsake the Worldly. So I just cycle it away and get something else.
Just discard, draw. So yeah, that's my idea for the Lazav thing. I made some changes from what I originally saw out there. But again, that's coming from my own like penchant for instant and sorceries. Mine's pretty heavy on that. There's a lot of creatures out there that actually have cycling. It seems like with this new set, we're getting spoiled. There's Cycling's one of the mechanics that they're pushing a little bit.
There's something akin to the Astral Slide.
Yes, there's
I
pretty much
believe.
Astral Slide 2.0 that it itself has cycling. So
which makes it so that if it shows up in your hand and you've already got the Astral Slide.
Well, how it works with Zur already, like, so one of the loops I set up with Zur is, okay, so Astral Slide, it says every time you cycle a card, you exile one of your creatures, and then as soon as the turn ends, they come back. So it's kind of like a slow flicker effect.
Right.
Well, one of the big combos in the deck is to either find an instant or sorcery that I can use to blink the Archaeomancer, because if it itself has cycling, the Archaeomancer leaves, comes back, and I just keep pushing it in and out of the graveyard.
Yeah.
Right? Or an enchantment where I can hit
like the Monk Idealist.
The Monk Idealist or his wizard.
The Auramancer.
The Auramancer, there we go. So I actually have a wizard cycling card in the deck that just tutors one of those two, depending on what I have in my hand. So if I have Forsake the Worldly, since it's an instant sorcery, I'm going to go grab the Archaeomancer so I can have her come in and out.
That's funny.
And just re-reference its own cycled card.
Okay.
And then if I have, like, I don't know, an enchantment out. So let's say I have Astral Slide already out and I draw this new one that they've spoiled.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be crazy to have both, because I could do two creatures.
Do two.
But I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't trust the Bane of Progress to not show up to the party enough. So I'd probably just cycle it and have it just come in and out of my hand.
The Bane of Progress is just coming in with like a big giant boom box, ruining everything.
I brought bagels.
I brought bagels.
Okay.
We're going to do yoga and have a really good start to the day, everybody.
Yeah, that's the Bane of Progress. You know he's all about the sun salutation.
That's right.
Okay, man, you got something?
Yeah, I got something. So let me just dive in, and because I want to. We're suckers for context, and I need to give context.
Yeah, dude, we're way addicted to context.
So I'm going to talk about God Eternal Oketra. And
that's the white one.
That is the white one.
Okay.
Not because I have something super special to present, but before we go, I want to have a discussion about about her design.
Okay.
What she's doing and what we should look for, I think.
Have you kind of changed your mind about her a little bit, or?
Yes. Yeah. So.
Oh, good for you.
So I think I told you I kind of had this gut feeling. I'm like, man, I feel like there's something I could do with Oketra where I'm doing a white weenie recursion type thing.
Okay.
Because white has a decent amount of recursive type stuff in it, right? That seems to be, because we don't get virtually any card draw in white, recursion is kind of one of the primary ways I think you need to look for some kind of card advantage in Commander with white. And so I thought getting a 4/4 zombie out of the God Eternal Oketra just for casting a creature, and creatures are going to die, and if I can recur them some way,
sure.
I think maybe we can push this value engine. So I started exploring her. Anyway, let me contextualize her, like read her card. So 3/2 white for God Eternal Oketra, one of the zombie gods. The body on her is 3 and a 6. She has double strike, and then whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And again, the long-term plan, death. So put her third from the top whenever she dies or gets exiled.
God complex.
God complex.
Wait, what did we call it? We came up with something fairly clever about that.
It's the long-term death.
Long-term death. Yeah, you're right. That's what we called it.
It's the long-term plans.
Death.
So anyway, I started looking at God Eternal Oketra, and I went to EDH Rec and I was like, oh my God, people have already cracked something I think that's very important about what she's doing.
Okay, what?
So if you go to the high synergy cards on Oketra.
Yeah, I noticed they changed it from signature to high synergy.
Yeah, high synergy.
Oh, I just yawned when I said that.
High synergy.
High synergy yawn. Okay, sorry, continue.
You and I have some kind of like weird aversion to overused words in the community. And they just turned one of those into a card in Modern Horizons.
Fuck off. Shut up.
Anyway, high synergy cards. So one of the things that you see pretty much riddled throughout this high synergy is creatures that say when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand.
So flickery. Oh, you mean like your Ifara nonsense, that whole thing that you were doing back then.
Yeah, so let me just read
White
off.
Main Lion?
Yeah, the White Main Lion is a perfect example of this. So White Main Lion has flash. It's 1 and a white. It's a 2/2 cat, but it says whenever the White Main Lion enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. The high synergy card section of EDH Rec for God Eternal Oketra is just chock full of these.
Just bereft of,
Yeah, it's
just totally rife with these
yes,
cards.
totally rife with them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, people are trying to solve the card advantage problem for mono white with just this. I'm going to have basically the same cards, but I'm just going to keep cycling them in and out of my hand.
And I'm just turning them into token.
Yeah, and turning them into a bunch of tokens. And so I only need 1 White Main Lion and 1, say, Emancipation
She says you
Angel.
have to cast them, right?
Yeah, they have to be cast in order to get the zombie token.
Okay, all right.
And so this roundabout thing that I was thinking of doing recursion, like you can't have them come into the battlefield from the graveyard. They need to go from the battlefield to your hand. And so
it's similar.
So it's similar, or yeah, like in this case, they're going from battlefield to hand. So anyway, like I like, let me just go through the list of cards to kind of do that. And I did put a list together and I put a recursion package in it as well. But what I want to say, I guess, is as we're monitoring mono white going forward, I think we need to look for the clever ways to create card advantage. I don't know if they're going to design it in a straightforward way.
Which is straight up card draw.
Yeah, which is straight up card draw.
Yeah.
But I think God Eternal Oketra has created this space and people are applying it where we're pseudo creating card advantage, because
yeah,
one of the things that ends up happening if you're doing a creature centric build is it gets board wiped and you're fucked. But with this idea of sending stuff back to your hand, you should still have some material left to use after a board wipe, right?
3 turns later.
Yeah.
If you long term her.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to cast her and get some other stuff going, but you know, you at least have cards you can use to get back in line.
If she was indestructible, she'd be pretty damn cool.
She'd be pretty fucking awesome.
This is a hard outlet for them to break.
Okay, so this one is it's kind of pretty encompassing. So Dust Elemental, it's 2 and 2 white. So when it enters the battlefield, return 3 creatures you control to their owner's hand.
Gah.
But remember, if you
flash,
it does have flash.
Okay.
So remember, and it is a 6/6. So you know, you can kind of surprise people with some blocks with that.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, we're also going to pair in some white weenie type stuff. So we've got small things like a Soul Warden or a Soul's Attendant or that kind of crap.
To get some of that life gain.
So we've got life gain, but they're also just really easy, like to reset those things. Once you've cast a Dust Elemental, you can put them back out, get more
Suture
zombies.
Priest.
Yeah, Suture Priest. You can even do, the Ariok Champion. There's even some that kind of fit into that with the ramp where you can do like the Knight of the White Orchid. So you can get yourself a Plains.
Does that go into your hand? Is it conditional? I can't remember.
Well, there is a condition with it. So it says when the Knight of the White Orchid comes into play, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you can search your library for a Plains card.
How does a Boreas Charger work? He leaves. His is a leave play though.
I think
so
that is a
like use a way to kick him out.
Yeah, but again, with these return to sending things back to your hand, that works.
Okay.
Right. Solemn Simulacrum and the Core Cartographer are going to be better for doing that kind of stuff because you're putting something into play.
Okay.
So it's going to be better than something like the Knight of the White Orchid, but you pay extra mana to get it started. Let's go through some more of these cards to sending stuff back to your hands. So there's the Iganjo Free Riders. It's 3 and a white, flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, return a white creature card you control to its owner's hand.
Oh, it's like a blood clock kind of thing.
Yeah. I mentioned the Emancipation Angel, so that's 3 mana to do returning a permanent you control to its owner's hand.
Sure.
Jeskai Barricade has flash. Defender, it's a 0/4 for 2 mana. So when it enters a battlefield, return another target creature to its owner's hand. Core Skyfisher does it with a permanent. Selfless Spirit.
So it's there, man. This is here.
Yeah, like exactly. There's stuff going on here. Another one that you've seen, I think I've seen you use this, is the Umbilicus.
Yeah, I've used them. It's blood clock and umbilicus are similar. I use them for Gonti.
Yeah, use it for Gonti.
Anyway.
So umbilicus is 4 mana for an artifact. During each player's upkeep, that player pays 2 life or returns a permanent he or she controls to its owner's hand. So it allows you to kind of just keep getting stuff into your hand to recast.
But everybody else too, though.
Yeah, everybody else that may have, it's risky.
Depending on the deck, it's like
if somebody else has other ETBs that they're abusing, you might kind of be in trouble a little bit with that. But like there's a decent package with that, and there will be more of those types of cards that appear over time. Like I've got 8 of those cards in this deck that just send stuff from the battlefield to hand. You can get into using.
That's a pretty good critical mass.
Yeah, that's a decent critical mass. I think you can be more selective as we see more of those types of things over time with what you're using. And then but the thing that's nice about this is that you can get a lot of value out of it with something like if you have your Mentor of the Meek, you're generating card draw well using just this engine that you kind of have set up, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And
For some of them.
And then with Ranger, like things like Ranger of Eos, which I think there's a new card that's akin to the Ranger of Eos that's coming out with Modern Horizons, where you can go tutor. I think in his case, it's 2 creature cards with converted mana cost 1 or less, or you can do the Recruiter of the Guard, where you're tutoring creatures with toughness of 2 or less.
Yeah.
So you're getting those weenies into your hand, like, and you can kind of do that multiple times if you're doing this kind of bouncing back type stuff.
And all the while getting these double-sized zombies.
Yeah, you're getting these 4/4 zombies, which, you're going to put in, you can put in some things to sort of double dip with it. Like you can put in Cathar's Crusade to make this stuff just overwhelmingly large.
Or Anointed Procession.
Anointed Procession to double it. You can put in stuff like the Genesis Chamber to get additional tokens with it.
God, okay.
So, there's stuff here to generate the value that's been really hard to generate with mono white. I'm not presenting anything that I think is unique from what the community's already done. I just thought it was important in this kind of before we go moment to point out Oketra
This is probably the direction we're headed with white and Boros, I guess.
This is something we need to keep an eye on. Like, don't be bitching and complaining that we need to get white stuff that just draws us cards. Like, it's kind of hidden, I think, in the way they're designing it. I just don't think they're going to break that design unless they're crazy and just give us card draw in white.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about, because really, like, are you okay with white having static? Like, it's very difficult to take what white has earned away from it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, as soon as it's played out these permanents, it's just getting. I don't know. It's kind of why I'm a little on the camp of giving white counter magic.
Yeah,
it
would be dope to do that.
It's maybe more like stuff that's more targeted, like it's not as open-ended counter magic as blue, but giving it something to say, yeah, no, I'm not letting you do that.
Right.
It kind of does already with its protection spells.
Sure.
But it seems like those are very creature focused.
Yeah. So examples of that would be, which I've included in this deck and you'll find with Oketra, would be things like Rootborn Defenses, Populate, and creatures you control are indestructible until end of turn.
This would be important to have, or the Selfless Spirit.
Yeah, Selfless Spirit, Unbreakable Formation, creatures are indestructible, and it has that thing where you can get them +1 if you do it during your main phase to do that. But yeah, like it would be interesting to give it counter magic. As a side note, I actually did put Lapse of Certainty in here, just because when you're doing a creature centric thing,
they never see it coming, man.
Yeah, like A, they're probably not going to see it coming.
They never see it coming.
B, usually when you have a creature-centric deck, you're oftentimes a turn away from really like changing the tide of things. And so that extra turn that a Lapse of Certainty gives you could probably do it.
Yeah, like the Cyclonic Rift is now on the top of their library.
Yeah.
And now everyone knows like what's coming up. Yeah, I like Lapse of Certainty enough,
So
when you're unable to get Arcane Denial and counter spell. And,
yeah, exactly.
You take what you can get.
Exactly. So I'm not offering anything particularly special with what I just enumerated to us. I just think that God Eternal Oketra is compelling, and the design is telling us something about what we can do with mono white.
Huh. Pretty into that.
Yeah.
Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing that one actually be a thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of white, let's talk about Teysa one last time.
Fuck yeah.
If there's any reason to leave this goddamn block behind, this goddamn set is Teysa's a very, very popular addition to the commander. So
she is the cream that rises to the top.
So 2 a white and a black, legendary creature, human advisor. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens you control have vigilance and lifelink. She's a 2/4. So Kyle, I'm gonna need your help with this one because you should have done this, not me. You've been all over this side of the colorness thing.
Sure.
So back when we discovered her as a card, you had thrown out that you thought she had potential as heading an artifact focused strategy.
Yeah.
And I got very
aroused.
Yeah, you know, I was pretty turned on by that. So I kind of pursued it pretty early. Like this list is actually,
you've had it sitting around for a little bit.
Yeah, like I've had it sitting around because you just jumped on her. Like you've already built that.
Yeah,
deck.
I built my deck, but you've got like an artifacts idea for.
So we're gonna have to marry our expertise a little here. And
okay.
If I have a card in here where you're like, yeah, that doesn't work with her, then I'll just cry forever. All right. So I wanted to kind of go over right away. The reason one would do this is just because, yeah, like, I don't know, maybe you've already seen the strategy played out. One Teysa deck is much like another, right?
That, or I find that people that are into artifacts, they're just, once you get into them,
they kind of itch your brain a little bit.
They do.
Yeah. And yeah. So let's talk about just creatures that care about being in a deck with her, right? Like that are artifacts.
Yes.
I'm not even going to go over like the classics that are already probably really good, but if not better than these, but
sure.
You know, alternate build, goddammit. So the first one would be like the Ancient Stone Idol.
Okay.
So I don't see him making the cut for a deck that wasn't focused on artifacts because he's kind of a weird guy. So he's 10 mana for an artifact creature golem.
Yeah.
He's a 12/12, but he has flash. And this spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. So they don't need to be attacking you, that you can be attacking or whatever, but
yeah,
he suddenly will drop down in price for that. He also has trample, so he's a big boy.
Yeah, this 12/12's gonna get in.
Should he die, he creates 2 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature tokens with trample.
Well, with her, he'll create 2, right?
Yeah, I'm saying like ones that care about her.
Yeah,
so yeah. When he dies in without her, he just kind of downsizes his power a little bit, and you get a different.
He's like, whoa, okay.
A construct. He goes from a golem to a construct. But with her out, you have actually more toughness. 24 toughness now, but the same amount of damage. So he's kind of the first one on the list of
I dig that
of who cares. The Hangerback Walker is another one.
Oh fuck yeah!
So it's XX. Hangerback Walker enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. When you can pay 1 and tap and add a counter to Hangerback Walker. So if you're kind of like in an idle state where you're needing a good mana sink, you can always kind of start ticking him up.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Hangerback Walker dies, you create a colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying for each +1/+1 counter on Hangerback Walker.
I just think Hangerback Walker's good in Teysa whether you're doing artifacts or not.
Sure.
Because if you like, just imagine you have that like Smothering Tithes that's gotten you a bunch of
artifact treasures.
This is a great place to sink it on that big swell turn.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it sucks that you tap.
Sure.
You know, you tap him to add it to increase his power.
Sure, but just the casting moment with him is like,
oh, you mean the turn you resolve?
Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Not as activated.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I got a bunch of these treasure tokens. Where am I going to put them? I'm going to dump them into the Hangerback Walker casting, and then, yeah, like it's. Anyway.
Okay, another one that really cares about being around Teysa would be like the Wormcoil Engine. So kind of the classic, just 6 mana, death touch, lifelink for a 6/6. When Wormcoil Engine dies, you put a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature with death touch, and a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature with lifelink into the battlefield. So in this case,
you're getting 4 tokens with Teysa.
Yeah, man,
that's fucking crazy.
Definitely freaking Muad'Dib time with that, Robo Muad'Dib time with that. So should it die, you're getting two of each.
Yeah.
The Scrap Trawler. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact creature artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand a target artifact card from your graveyard with a lesser converted mana cost. So like as long as another artifact creature goes off.
Yeah.
And then same with the the Mirror Retriever. So when it dies, you return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand.
But in the case with Teysa, you're going to be returning 2, right?
Yeah.
Which is dope for card advantage.
It's really
right?
good. It's not like you're not even even. You're actually up a card.
Yeah, you're up a card with that.
If that one dies. So these are just like artifact creatures that I kind of saw. The other one is the Dross Scorpion.
Oh, interesting.
So this
How are
one,
you doing this?
The combo, I don't know, man. Like this, I think is just going to get pretty wild with him out. So he's 4 mana. Whenever Dross Scorpion or another artifact creature is put into the graveyard from play, you may untap target artifact. But he would throw 2 untaps.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it really low to the ground like we always do here at Legendary Creature Podcast. Let's say you have a Gilded Lotus out and you have initiated, an artifact creature death. So let's say you've just sacked off a token with an Ashnod's Altar. Right?
Sure.
You would tap the Gilded Lotus to add 3 to your mana pool, and this guy would throw 2 more untaps at it.
Yeah.
So you could... Yeah, you're jumping the fuck up in
That's
mana.
fucking crazy.
Because she's saying, "Oh yeah, go twice."
So you don't even need to create like an infinite with the Dross Scorpion for this to create a ton of value.
Yes, the Dross Scorpion is a well-known infinite enabler because it can. Yeah, so like one of the easy ones is like, let's say you have like, I don't know, Staff of Nin out,
okay,
an Ashnod's Altar, and the Dross Scorpion and the Pentavis. So the Pentavis is in my list, by the way. But it says 7 mana. Pentavis enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 1 to remove a +1/+1 counter and put a colorless Pentavite artifact creature token with flying into the battlefield. So let's say we've just woken up in your turn. So you pay 1, make a Pentavite. You pay another 1 and sacrifice the Pentavite and put a sorry, you don't need an Ashnod's Altar here. You actually can just use this. You don't even need that. You sacrifice the Pentavite and you put a +1/+1 counter on the Pentavis. So really the idea here is that the Pentavites are going in and out of the Pentavis.
Sure, but with Teysa, the effect is
but
doubled.
With the Dross Scorpion out and anything that at least gives you at least 1 mana, you're mana neutral.
Yeah.
But with Teysa, you're now mana positive. So if you have like a Mind Stone,
yeah,
because he throws 2 untaps at your Mind Stone, you can tap.
Boop.
Yeah. With the Soul Ring, you're already infinite colorless already with the Soul Ring. So she kind of like, I think what she does is she just lowers the threshold of some of these combos.
That's awesome.
Where they're looking to find one more piece, she kind of just like, with the Dross Scorpion now, she just says, yeah, no, we're already there. Because I'm going to give you 2 untaps. Like there's our well-known combo with like the Alfeto Alchemist and the Illusionist Bracers. So when he taps, he can untap himself. Right. In the process, you've kind of like gone like a weird this is something similar to that with the Dross Scorpion.
Yeah.
Another 2, and weirdly enough, like I didn't include the other one on the list, but we keep hinting at these spoilers that we keep getting. But one is the Cathodian. So it's 3 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature construct, but when the Cathodian dies, you add 3 to your mana pool.
I think I actually put this one in Teysa just
to flush up to 6.
Yeah.
Just to jump up to 6 and add that to your Exsanguinate or whatever you're doing. There's another version of him called the Su Chi. But here's what's weird. Like I'm looking at the spoiler site and they don't, so he's like a $40 card. But I think they spoiled him as an uncommon in this whole Modern Horizons. But I only see him on Scryfall. I don't see him on any of the spoiler sites. So I'm hoping this is true. If so, then he should go on the list too. But he's the exact same card, but at the altitude of 4. So he's 4 CMC for a 4/4, and then when he dies, you add 4 to your mana pool.
Yeah.
What's weird is that the 4 is generic on the Scryfall site. It doesn't actually show up as diamond on the art. Maybe it's because they don't have it yet. I don't know. Isn't that weird?
The errata text does use the diamonds. Yeah.
Maybe they just don't have room. I don't know. But he's got this huge ass like flavor text that goes on. It's like a paragraph that's a flavor text. But anyway, Cathodian and the hymn, should they die, he'll give you 8 mana.
Yeah.
Should Cathodian die, he'll give you 6 mana. which can set you up for some other whatever.
Yeah,
right?
huge things happening.
Let's talk about those. Are just so far I've only talked about artifacts. I haven't really talked about anything outside of artifacts. So let's kind of mix it up a little and throw in, I don't know, Tashar. So he lets you recur some of these exact same artifacts. So he's 3 and a white. Whenever you cast a historic artifact, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
So I'll let me just back up for a second, because I have a Tashar deck, right?
Yeah.
And there are moments where I need access to two of my like eggs or Cheerios to order it, like just the
in order to get it rolling.
The piece that I've got, like, it just requires 2, right? The pieces I have, it just requires 2. But like Teysa can loosen that up, like you were described with the other combos. Like she's just like, okay, fine.
Yeah, she's definitely a good 10W30 on this mission.
Yeah, because
for sure.
because like I guess with Tashar, like you cast a historic spell, and then like you can, with this deck you can like sack off like the Mirror Retriever or whatever,
or the Cathodian,
or
and then he's going to see the Cathodian and shove him back into play.
Yeah, and then you cast
and you have 6 in your pool now.
Yeah, and you're getting because you can cast like exactly.
Yeah. So let's say we have Ashnod's Altar. We eat the Cathodian. We get how much mana from Ashnod's Altar if Teysa's out? Does she give you 4?
So that it doesn't work with that.
Because it adds to the pool, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get 2 in there, plus the 6 from the Cathodian.
Yeah, so we've got 8 mana.
So we got 8 mana in that instance. So it's now in the yard. We use that money to cast another artifact. So let's just use that to cast, I don't know, the Wormcoil Engine, because that's 6 mana.
Right.
Wormcoil Engine enters. Tashar sees that it's a historic spell, throws Cathodian back into play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can loop it so that we have infinite Wormcoil tokens from that with that whole combo you just described, right?
Well, once you eat the Wormcoil Engine, I don't know how to get that back into play. Except for a really dumb card that I put on the list to try to abuse these loops. But,
I get you.
But hang on. So Enduring Renewal. I don't know about keeping this in the list. So this would work if this happened. So it says 2 white and a white. Play with your hand revealed. So you're like, okay, whatever it says next better be good. If you would draw a card, reveal the top card of your library instead. If it's a creature card, put it right into the graveyard. Otherwise, draw a card. So if it's not a creature, you still take it. But then it says, whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand.
Oh, so this will help that, like, loosen
so now
all that
the Wormcoil
kind of stuff.
Engine's going in and out.
Okay.
It's just returning back to your hand, and you're getting more and more Wormcoil Engines.
So that's the next piece needed with that Cathodian Wormcoil Engine thing, right? Like,
yeah, so I it's in the list. You know, you kind of just walked me to that combo, but if it's there and you've got the Zulaport Cutthroat, we're GG at that point.
Yeah.
If you've got the Vindictive Vampire,
yeah, if you've
GG.
got any of those aristocrats available.
You've got any aristocrats out there. Yeah, so it's kind of putting things into perspective of where we're going. I forgot another one. Treasure Keeper.
Oh, yeah.
I love this guy. So
yeah, the Treasure Keeper's actually dope.
He's way good. So 4 mana for a 3/3 construct. Whenever Treasure Keeper dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with converted mana cost of 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all the revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library random order. So you go and find a 3 or less, and then go and find another 3 or less.
Yeah, so you get 2 out of that. That's fucking
pretty
dope.
hot, dude.
That's really dope.
That's satisfying enough for me. I'm trying to think of anybody else that's
dude. I'm gonna have to edit my deck, dude.
Oh yeah, the Marionette Master gets insane with this shit. So she's 4 a black. She's 4 a black and a black, right? And this is before I knew about Smothering Tide when I built this list.
Yeah.
But she says she comes in and she has a clause called Fabricate 3. So when this creature enters the battlefield, you can put 3+1/+1 counters on it, or create 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature tokens. She says, when an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So she's a 1/3.
Oh, fuck
so
yeah.
you can set her to 4.
Yeah.
And then let's say you drop a treasure, they're going to lose 4 life every time you've done this. You know, if it's a creature that you lose, then I think Teysa will say, "Oh yeah, go ahead and have them lose 8."
Yeah.
because it's an artifact creature.
Yeah, if a creature dying would trigger an ability of a permanent you control.
Yeah,
right?
so let's use this Cathodian again. If you sacrifice the Cathodian and she's at 4, like let's say you chose the +1/+1 side of the artifact and not, or sorry, of her ETB and not make the tokens.
Right.
Then yeah, they're leaving the game pretty quickly.
That's fucking
If you have
awesome.
Hangerback Walker out, it's just like, okay, bye.
Like,
because she doesn't say like non-token. Pitiless Plunderer feeds right into her too. So whenever another creature you control dies, create a colorless treasure artifact creature token. So while it doesn't double trigger from Teysa, he gets double the treasures. If it's a creature. Yeah, because it says whenever a creature you control.
Yeah, so you're gonna get 2.
She throws out 2 treasures. So we're kind of doing the same thing, just in a different way.
Just in a different
So they're losing 8 for every creature that dies if you just immediately sack it down. So yeah, bro, there's synergy here. There was one other weird ass combo that I found that I don't know, man. It's like it all. So you remember Sword of the Meek?
Yes.
So it's a 2-mana artifact. It says equipped creature gets +1/+2, has equip of 2. You're like, hey, why the fuck would I want that? Well, this last line of text that makes it an $18 card is whenever a 1/1 creature comes into play under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from the graveyard to play and then attach it to that creature. So the big thing that this is usually used for is a thing called the Factor Foundry, where you make a Thopter, you sack this to make a Thopter, which it sees itself and it kind of just,
and it just pulls it
and I
back.
think you need Ashnod's Altar and you just go off.
Yeah.
Right. You can actually do this without the Thopter Foundry. Kind of. You need a little bit more help, but what you need is what's called the Sly Requisitioner.
Okay.
So she's 4 and a black. She has Improvise, so your artifacts can help you cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1, so you can kind of reduce her costs using the Improvise thing. She's a 2/2 human artificer, but she says when a non-token artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you create a colorless servo artifact creature token.
Oh, okay.
So if you have KCI and you use the KCI on the sword, she's like, oh, well, here's a token. Well, then the sword's already in the yard and goes, oh, wait, there's a 1/1. I'm coming back.
And then you sack the sword to KCI.
And let's say you have Dross Scorpion out and he's like, well, let's fucking untap a shit ton of Gilded Lotuses a bunch of times while we're at it. So we're down the Rube Goldberg machine.
Oh my God, I fucking am loving this, dude, because this is the kind of stuff where like everything is a potential for combo, but it's not a specific combo.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can piece them together with other things, which is the kind of combos that I love.
Yeah, I'm pretty into this. So yeah, Smothering Tide, Revel in Riches. You might win off the Revel in Riches treasure.
Oh yeah.
I put Blade of the Bloodchief in here to
Okay.
just really get somebody freaking high as a kite on +1/+1 counters. So it says whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on a equipped creature. If the equipped creature is a vampire, put 2 +1/+1 counters.
But who the
on it
fuck
instead.
cares? We're gonna create all kinds of death.
Well, let's just strap that to the Marionette Master, and then she's just climbing up and up and up and up and up, and people are scrambling for a board wipe because it's just getting really. There's some dark work with this deck, dude. You would definitely be working in the dark, you know.
Oh my God.
You know what? Those who work in the dark see everything. I threw in God Eternal Bantu. So I think I had Reprocess in it originally, but I actually threw the Bantu God in there because I was like, they're pretty much the same card. So he's 3 a black and a black. When God Eternal Bantu enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents. Then draw that many cards. So like your Cathodian type guys, your Mirror Retrievers, like the stuff that's not explicitly a combo yet, you really just want to ditch them.
Yeah, like let me just draw some cards in the process.
Right, and start digging. So like I think really a way to dial back this deck a little bit is to maybe remove the tutors I've included.
Okay.
And just rely on digging really quickly through. That way you're really not tempted to kind of like, you know, I'm gonna go grab my infinite whatever. I don't know. I guess it's again we always ask like what does your moral labyrinth look like? I actually added Second Sunrise in here to kind of.
Oh yeah, so you can just bring it all back.
Yeah, I really like, let's say you're just short of a 1-hit kind of loop where you're, you know, so Second Sunrise is 1 a white and a white. Each player returns all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments and land cards that were put into his or her graveyard from play this turn. So with something like Bantu, you could tap your mana, and as long as you could go nuts. You could drop even some lands, I guess, if you're crazy enough. Just hope no one has a counter spell. But then you Second Sunrise it, and it's all shoved back into play. As far as like the aristocrats, I do have. Yeah, I got the Blood Artist, even though he's a little pointed, but we've seen the life gain on this guy. Just kind of go crazy. I did put the Vampire in, the Vindictive Vampire, because he hits everybody. Isn't there an Orzhov one? Is there an Orzhov one that has an ability like these guys? I just don't know. You know, that's why I'm asking you to help me.
So there actually is a new one that just came out, the Cruel Celebrant, to be included as well.
Okay, so maybe
it's Orzhov, so it just came out in War of the Spark.
So it wasn't out when I worked on this list.
But it says whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1.
All right, would you put this over the Vindictive Vampire? Because he deals damage.
Yeah.
And I don't have any way to like, I didn't put any infect or anything like that in here.
Sure.
To really abuse that. So I'd probably put her in.
I'm happy to use most of them, like the Zulaport Cutthroat,
He's
Blood Artist, like those ones that
here.
are a little lower to the ground. I prefer because you just, you know.
Yeah. So if I was to make any changes right off the top, I'd probably drop the tutor for something like the Smothering Abomination that just says, hey, every time you sacrifice a creature, draw a card.
Yeah.
I already have the other guy, the dude from Khonsa Tarkir.
Yeah.
You know the guy I'm talking about. Yeah, the Grim Haruspex.
Yes, the Grim Haruspex.
He's already in there, so whatever. But like, really kind of put him in there because I think you would draw 2, right? Or is that whenever you sacrifice? Does that? That's that one's weirding me out.
Yeah, so it's a weird concept. So Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar, those types of things don't get doubled because they're sacrificing. They're not. Her trigger is dying.
Okay, yeah, because it says at the beginning. So whenever you sacrifice a creature, draw your card. So that's the trigger. Is the whenever you sacrifice, not whenever a creature you control dies.
So for Teysa, she wants the death.
So he would not benefit from her.
Yeah.
Right. Still, again, I don't know. I don't see how you wouldn't benefit from this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting value from it, it's...
Yeah, because like the loop I just told you about with the token, so if you have Smothering Abomination out, that sword, the Sly Requisitioner, and Ashnod's Altar, like, here we go. And then you keep going until you find, I don't know, Grave Pact, and now it's, oh, fuck.
Yeah. That's the nice thing I think about Teysa Karlov is you can include some things that don't directly synergize with her because the other synergies I think compensate for it.
Yeah. There was another one that I didn't include in the list, but it might be worth as an outlet to, okay, what am I going to put all my infinite mana into that I found? It's the Cog Work Assembler. So you can pay 7, create a token that's a copy of a target artifact. That token gains haste and exile at the beginning of the next end step. So you have to pay 7 to do that, but it's a good way to kind of like just start cloning all of the current artifacts that you have.
Yeah.
And then sacking them away with something else.
Plus something like
this. So you're
this
not really
becomes
sacrificing anything real. You're only sacrificing these tokens. Metalworker is another one that's, dude, it's like it's an expensive card, but him and the Dross Scorpion kind of go nuts too, really quick. Like it's just very fast mana. I have the Suchi on my, because I'm seeing him at $50. But if that reprint is true,
which was,
I would expect him to be pretty low on the.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing on Scryfall too.
Nim Death Mantle is in this list as well. So any kind of Nim Death Mantle loop you want to get your hands on, you can do that too. I actually included the Blasting Station and the Grinding Station.
Okay.
Because they're a good way to sacrifice a creature and then they deal 1 damage to target creature or player. But then whenever a creature comes into play, you can untap the Blasting Station. So Teshar works in there somewhere.
Yeah, Teshar works very well at the Blasting Station.
Because he can shove the creature back into play. So you can sacrifice the Cathodian.
Yeah.
You know, and then you get your mana, and then you play a historic spell from your hand using that mana. It untaps, and he shoves the Cathodian back into play with it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the Cathodian works really well with him. The Suchi, not so much, because he wants him 3 or less, right? 3 CMC or down.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So...
And the Suchi's 4, but it's 8 mana you can net with that Suchi guy. Like, it's a lot. Like 8 mana, just
that's a ton of mana.
Yeah, that can be sunk into the Walking Ballista, or I guess if you decide to include this Cog Work Assembler.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Cog Work Assembler is a nice like just mana sink if you get yourself into an infinite colorless mana loop. You know?
Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. That token gains haste, and then you exile it at the end step.
Yeah, and you could, I mean,
I can just see so many ways to
if you
use
have the
that.
Gilded Lotus, then you can turn it into colored mana if you need to.
Yeah, you can start flipping it around because you can just
like you can like mold it into what you need it to be.
Yeah, Paradox Engine's obviously in this list as well. So
of course.
It's a nightmare of just like really, techie artifacty.
Dude, I'm so
stuff.
glad that this like that what I felt was there is actually
It's there, and
it's there.
like I think anybody looking into this they'll realize like there's a lot of suboptimal picks.
Yeah, because you
but
could
it's
be a
like-
little more direct just doing Teysa's thing.
You really could, and there's not a lot of like. I mean, there are a lot of token generators in this list, like that's Requisitioner, and
Sure.
I guess if you want to do the assembler, you could make lifelink vigilant copies of whatever. I mean, not that it matters because they only last till end of turn in that one's case, but like there is, I mean, she gives those Wormcoil Engine offspring vigilance,
Yeah.
and the Death Touch one is basically just a miniaturized version of the original now.
Yeah.
And you have 4 of them, so it's pretty wild. I think that one's probably already in her deck, right? The Wormcoil Engine, but
Yeah,
This is
it's
just
definitely
saying-
one of those that's in there.
yeah, you're just all in on the artifact strategy. You know, that's kind of the idea with that one. I'd build this.
Yeah, it's fucking dope, dude.
I'd build it.
I'm really happy.
I'd leave
about
mono red artifacts for it.
that.
You know, because I'm a hipster snob.
There's something about artifacts once you get into them, dude. Because I've
Yeah,
been
you-
working on that Bosch list, and I just keep like goldfishing it.
Oh,
over
you're really
and
gonna
over
do
and
Bosch,
over and
huh?
over. I'm really intrigued
He's
by
so
it.
cool. He's just a big, friendly robot.
Yeah, it's just it's different from because like Tashar, it's artifacts to combo, and Bosch is kind of like
I'm just gonna-
artifacts
To throw at people.
to throw at people.
It's not. It just let's strip the elegance right out of the artifacts.
It's like someone that's like a really bad parent. Bosch is, where it's just like if some kid is about to wreck something, the parent like picks it up and just smashes it over the kid's head. Like, no, fuck, I'm the only one that can wreck that thing.
Where?
Don't color on the wall, only I can.
All right, so that's it, man. We got anything else? I only have the 2. this
Yeah, I've
time.
only got those 2 decks, but should we do kind of like maybe just a post-mortem a little bit, or are we just fucking done?
Oh, I want to say like that Storev, whatever, Dvarkin Lich.
yeah, so
you
so
could
the
you
Gari
could
one.
try cycling with that one too.
Oh,
You
interesting.
lose blue, but you gain green. There's actually like a gain green. There's a cycling green enchant that puts +1/+1 counters on your trampling giant. You know, like your trampling attacker.
Mhm.
So that's something to think about too. Sounding like a lot of people are like thinking that this is kind of a planeswalker where you commander, because she actually lets you. So the comparison with Marin is there, right? Like it's
Sure, but
same color identity.
But because of the planeswalker aspect, it's a little
Well, and
differentiated.
the on cast. So another thing to consider is that
Mm.
anything where you are reliant on, because Marin doesn't grant you on cast stuff.
Sure.
So things like some of the Eldrazi Titans are on cast.
Yeah.
I think somebody was kind of commenting that Emerge is another one that's like you can't do that either.
Oh.
And Emerge kind of helps you along because the costs are reduced. Emerge gets really cheap,
Yeah.
and you eat a creature, emerge another creature, attack with Devar. What am I saying? Devar.
Dev Karen.
Dev Karen, but it's really Storev, right? You attack with Storev,
Yeah.
hits him, recast the original. I don't know. So,
Yeah.
There's something there. I just don't know what it is. If
Sure.
it's cycling, I can see pivoting over and saying like, okay, all the cycling cards I have are creatures.
Yeah.
So something like the Chefnet Monitor or the Krosan Tusker, where I'm cycling just for land.
Oh.
But my worry is, and then you find that enchantment where she's getting bigger. But my worry is that you eventually will run out of a place to attack because people have
Sure.
pillar forted you out, or there's a
But
blocker
again,
that's
because
unfavorable.
with
or-
black, like you can put in like the Faith of the Devoted, where you're cycling, you can be doing damage on the way, and
Yeah. And then eventually giving her death touch is another idea because she's death touch trample. So now you're getting that trigger.
yeah,
You can death touch a creature out and then assign the rest of their face and get your
interesting.
recast. And then the planeswalker thing too, where you're looking for planeswalkers to just have them use their middle abilities as quick as possible to get them back in the zone, or back in the graveyard and then get them back out.
That's
That
interesting.
seems really mana intensive to me. Or just, hey, let them get attacked into. I don't like just keep going until everyone attacks into them enough, and then okay, whatever, and then cast them.
Yeah.
You could again say, well, why don't you just run Muldrotha? And I would say,
yeah, you got it.
we already talked about Muldrotha. That was last year, man. Muldrotha is really 2017. Isn't that when she came out?
2018.
28. Really 2018. God, it wasn't even that long
We've
ago.
aged, man. We've aged.
Anybody else that we've...
I don't know. I think I just kind of had this... We didn't really talk about Kefnet, but I'm sure people will find plenty of resources about God Eternal Kefnet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really need us to do it.
I think Kefnet's... I actually really like Kefnet.
Kefnet is cool. I'm not saying it's not cool. But we just
the extra turns thing is just like...
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just a good card to put to use, right? Like I just loaded it into my Will and Rowan deck too.
You would.
I mean, I don't have morals, but
yeah.
What's your feeling about this whole block as we walk away from we planes walk away from Ravnica this time around?
Ravnica was very dramatic. This was a very dramatic last couple half a year. When did they start rolling this stuff out? October.
So it was last
year?
fall.
So yeah, this has been a really dramatic thing because we had some really big controversy with box sets being sold online and box toppers, but that was kind of in the middle with that whatever. But then the premium thing with like the premium Ravnican boxes.
Yeah, that you can only buy buy on their website or buy through eBay, and they accidentally order too many.
And then people that ordered too fast aren't getting their apology sheet of foil, and the people that ordered kind of in the middle are, and there's a whole like there was a lot of drama surrounding, and that's not Ravnica's fault.
But the product that surrounds
then if we want
Ravnica.
to point at Ravnica, it's like, the story kind of, I mean, to me, it was like, really, what the hell was that all about? Like, we had this huge lead up. It wasn't even just Ravnica. Like, we were following the Nikki B plot line to come to an end way back.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, man, and we finally hit it, and it's like, cool. He gets put in an egg, and 2 guys die that no one cares about. And then as far as like the legends go, like for our format specifically, like there were some really compelling ones that came out, and then there were some duds.
I have mixed feelings. Like as I was preparing for this episode, there's some stuff that I just had put out of my mind.
Sure.
You know, like examples would be Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice, or Tajic Legion's Edge.
You don't even think about them, but then Feather.
But yeah, then Feather's here.
So the same neighborhood these guys live in. And
it's just like we say this time and time again.
Because in Ravnican neighborhoods,
it's true. They're in the same district. You can't get like everything isn't designed for Commander players, right?
True.
But there is this part of me that's just kind of like, man, that was kind of disappointing though. And some of these guilds got a little screwed. They didn't get as cool legends as we could have had. Like Rakdos got Judith, which people are into, but she kind of has a little parking brake that she drives with. And Rakdos Showstopper is kind of...
They peaked with the other guy, yeah.
Yeah, like Nikaya is really cool, but there's only one Gruul commander. Selesnya, I kind of feel a little let down in the end.
Yeah, they got hosed. We didn't really get
like Amara, Soul of the Accord, I think is intriguing, but not there.
She's
Tristani Discordant is a fuck up. Like I really think it's a fuck up in design. It doesn't fit the game the way they designed it. And like Tulsamir is kind of like wait and see.
See how much support it gets.
Yeah, wait and see.
Yeah. As far as Izzet goes, like we got...
You only got Perrin.
Yeah, I got Perrin.
He's cool.
And that's enough for everybody. That's enough for everybody.
Simic got 2 kind of like meh, but then Prime Speaker
got a
Vanifar
really
is
crazy
awesome.
one. Sure, yeah, you're right. 2 kind of whatever, and then a really crazy one. Orzhov got a really broken...
Yeah, she's cool.
Not
only
broken,
the one, but she's really awesome.
Very compelling.
Like Azorius, Lavinia Azorius Renegade is people are just not that excited about it.
Yeah, no one wants to play that. Azorius is another one that kind of... Right. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting... And then as far as like cards go...
I think there's a lot of cards
Oh, yeah.
for Commander players that have
A lot
come
of
out of these 3
Planeswalker
blocks.
hate and Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Some crazy instant or sorceries in the what is it, the finale cards. That's what
Yeah,
they're
the
called. I was going
finale
to say hour,
cycle.
but I meant the finale cards are pretty explosive.
Yeah.
Big splashy cards.
Yeah, there've been some really cool cycles that have come with it. I think
Smothering Tithe.
Yeah, I think there's things that change the face of the game a little bit too, such as Smothering Tithe, where it's like White has a very powerful commander card in that immediately is just you should have bought a bunch right out of the gate because it's only going to go up.
Yeah, I ordered a bunch because I'm watching it just creep along.
Yeah.
Probably need to order a few more. But
Yeah,
it's been pretty cool. Ups and downs, lefts and rights. Man. I'm ready to move on. Like I really am.
I am too. It'll be interesting to kind of like mess around with to review Modern Horizons. Take a look at that.
I think it's going to be the first time you and I do a modern release because
because there's new stuff.
We
in
just
it,
have
right?
to do it.
There's
a lot.
They've been
in there for
reprints
everybody.
in the past, but it's very commander centric, I think, as well. So it is for us, Andy. It is for us.
Well, we managed to escape from Ravnica, and we did it well over 24 hours, but hey, we managed to save the president. President Niv Mizzet. The music from this episode is by Protector 101. The songs are Catatonia for the intro, and Peace and Death for the outro. Both are from his Para Amnesia album. You really should seek it out because it is so good. Well, off we go up and away from Ravnica and into Modern Horizons. Welcome to the Magic the Gathering product release nexus, folks. It never ends and there is no escape. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to listen to us. It really means the world to Kyle and I. Take care and we will see you again.
Turn your radio dial to KILL.